Hey, good afternoon, Kevin.
Good afternoon. How's it going?
Not too bad. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. Happy Friday. It is completely way too cold outside in New York. But I know it's much colder up there where you are, so I shouldn't be
It
complaining.
is.
I realize
It is much colder, and
that.
I'm glad you're saying this. So, for the audience, it's Friday, January 29th, and it is really cold.
Yeah.
And I've decided I'm catching up with a friend at 3 o'clock on the phone. I've decided I'm going to walk and talk. So I'm going to
Oh, interesting.
get
Okay.
out there in my fleece pants. I've got a big old winter coat, stocking hat. I like it cold being from Minnesota. I don't mind the cold. It's
Yeah.
the wind is also pretty strong. I think the
Mm-hmm.
wind chill right now is like -2, but
Yep.
my wife's like, that's too cold. I'm like, I used to go skiing in this weather growing up. Like it's not, as long as you bundle up, it's fine. The
See, that's how
question
you
is,
and I are different, Jason.
uh-huh.
Very
Well, you're not
different.
from Minnesota.
Right. Very different. Um, but yeah, no, I walked to the gym this morning, talk about journey to today. I walked to the gym this morning at 7 o'clock, and it was probably 15 degrees outside, but it felt like -10. So
Yeah.
I'm in the house for the rest of the day. Yeah, that's
For those who
it.
can't see Kevin, he's currently wearing a snowmobile suit and a stocking hat with a space heater
uh,
next to him.
I can't.
Maybe
I
not.
can't.
All
But
right, so Kev, let's kick off today. So first things first for the audience, love if you'd introduce yourself, where you are in the world. I think you actually just kind of mentioned that, and just a little
yeah,
bit about yourself.
yeah. So my name is Kevin. I'm currently based in Clinton Hill, Brooklyn. It's about 10 minutes east of downtown Brooklyn. For those that are familiar with the area, I was born in Bed-Stuy, but my parents moved around a bit, so I eventually settled in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where I did middle school and high school, and eventually attended Emory University in Atlanta. Did 2.5 years in Austin, and I moved back to New York in 2018. So I kind of consider myself to be a nomad in many respects. I have many
Mm-hmm.
homes. And I think that's also just shaped the person I am today. I love to travel. We'll probably get into this, but I'm a
Yeah,
big traveler and naturally inquisitive and curious. Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna right off the top embarrass you a little bit because it's one of the things
What?
I do here. And we'll talk at the end of the episode. We're going to talk about how you can get to know Kevin on social media, but Kevin is
Yeah.
also quite the influencer on Instagram, and I'm not kidding about this. You need to follow
I wouldn't
Kevin
say
on Instagram.
influencer, but
Not an
but I, I I
your
do enjoy social
Instagrams.
media. Yeah.
Your Instagram stories are. I'm like, that dude should be teaching people how to do that. They're very good. They're very good.
I learn from the best. I learn
Yeah.
from the
All
best,
right.
truly.
Shall we get into it, Kevin?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So, first question for you: what's something that you
Yeah.
nerd out about, Kevin?
Oh my gosh. Um, it's so funny you asked this because I actually find myself going down Wikipedia rabbit holes constantly. So I'm truly constantly impressed and curious by many things. Namely, I mean, I could talk all day about the Academy Awards and who's won, who hasn't, like who has the most nominations, who doesn't, right? I
Yeah.
love my house plants. I love taking care of them. I could talk about them all day. I have a fig tree. I have a snake plant. I have a banana leaf. I love Brooklyn. As someone that lives in Brooklyn now, I can talk about different neighborhoods, how nuanced they are. And I also love music. I'm a huge fan of disco music. I have a bucket list item that for one of my birthdays coming up, I don't know whether it's going to be next year or 30, but I want to host a Studio 54 themed birthday. And I am going to make it happen. That's my goal. But I
That's
love music.
awesome. Yeah,
But
I had a
go ahead.
question for you, as you haven't been a guest on my show before, but I like
Yeah.
to dig in on some things that I find interesting, hoping that the audience
Uh-huh.
finds it interesting. And if they don't, then my show, and they can
Yeah.
tune out.
Right.
What I was interested about the Wikipedia thing. I've never heard that before. Is
Oh,
there a
yeah.
specific genre or topic that has you just be like, oh, this is going to be a couple hours of my time?
I mean, I'm also a huge history buff, so
Oh, okay.
um, I find myself going down a rabbit hole. Let's say, like African American civil rights movement of like the 50s and 60s. If
Yeah.
you click on a link of one specific person, that leads you down a whole rabbit hole and a whole decision tree of many different people that are connected to that person. So you can spend hours. Clearly, that's a huge movement, super important to American history. You can spend hours like breezing through each person's bio, like talking about where they're from, like everything. And
Yeah.
I have to kind of stop myself from being on my computer that long because if I don't really check myself, it gets a little messy, is what I like to call it. It's so
Yeah,
messy.
that's cool. I like
Yeah.
Wikipedia as well. I don't generally do rabbit holes, but I don't generally do like the click, click, click. I mean, I have,
Yeah.
but for me, Wikipedia is I kind of treat it like the truth, which is a little dangerous
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
like,
it's just
well,
so easy. It's so easy.
it's just so easy. But I
Yeah.
want to offer you something. I don't think we've talked about this before. So obviously Kevin and I know each other outside the podcast. That's why
Yeah.
we're quite friendly. But have you ever been to the website songfacts.com?
I haven't. No.
Oh,
Do I want to
Kevin.
though? Is that really going to
Oh,
get my mental
no,
health?
it is one of my favorite websites. I'm also a big music person. You go to songfacts.com and you can read about music, and it basically is like a Wikipedia for a specific song, and it'll say like, so let's say I know you're a big Donna Summer fan, right? And like,
Yes.
let's take a
Huge.
Donna Summer song, like hot stuff. Like you can go there and be like hot stuff by Donna Summer, and it'll break down like all the things
Yeah.
that she said about it in articles. It'll generally say like this song was inspired by this, it was written about this. And I'm
Wow.
a big fan of how I'm a big fan of how music is inspired and written about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so, and what it actually does is I think it's crowdsourced, but it basically will say things like, well, Donna Summer, you know, she was performing and I'm making this up. She was performing in Minneapolis, and it was really hot
Uh-huh.
that evening, and she went out for a drink with her friend, and they started talking, and she wrote this on the back of a napkin, and then she gave it to her producer, and they recorded it 2 weeks later. It'll be like amazing
Wow.
stuff like that. And then they'll
Yeah.
have like quotes from different articles that people have written. So songfacts.com. So anytime I run into a song that I'm like, oh, I don't know if you ever had this
Yeah.
happen, Kevin, but you hear a song, and you're like, I'm really wondering where that inspiration came from.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
for me, especially, I'm a big classic rock person. There's so many classic rock songs. You're like, what is this about? Like, how would you have
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
possibly come up with this? And it will almost always have the song and almost always tell you what it's about. It'll also
Mm.
tell you like where it charted around the world.
Yeah.
It'll tell you like who played all the instruments, which as a guitar player, I'm always like, wow, I love that track. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think I was listening to, what was I listening to? Oh, I don't know if you know, I like Don Henley. I don't know if you know who Don Henley is.
I've heard the name. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
the drummer for the Eagles, right? So
Okay.
you've
Gotcha.
heard him sing a
Gotcha.
lot. And
Okay.
he had a solo career in the 80s, and he has a song called Dirty Laundry, which I really like. And it's got two badass guitar solos. And I'm like, I love these guitar solos. And I looked it up and I forgot it was, and I'm like, oh, it's a really famous guitar player.
Mm.
So you can
Mm.
look and say like who played the drums, who played that. So anyway, I'm going to give you
Yeah.
something else to waste your time on besides your
Oh.
Instagram stories and Wikipedia.
No,
Songfacts.com. You're
no,
welcome.
Jason. The last thing I need is another site to waste my time on. Just and you know how deep I am in this next thing I'm going to talk about.
Exactly. All right.
But before we jump into that, I do want to say I'm also just someone that loves random facts. Like I remember, and I think that's fueled why I have so many different interests. But the number one song in America when I was born was "Dream Lover" by Mariah Carey. Like I'm someone that
really?
likes to know that. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I'm someone that loves to know things like that because for some reason they give me some purpose in life, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it does help contextualize like the things that fuel me, maybe the things that make me tick that I didn't realize make me tick and why. So yeah, I'm a big fan of random facts. That's why I love Jeopardy too. Love Jeopardy.
Oh, I love
Rest in peace,
Jeopardy.
Alex Trebek.
I'm going to say a couple things. One, you and I are alike, and I actually am Googling my number one song the year of my birthday.
Yeah,
And
do it. It's great.
And two, you're making me feel really old because I specifically remember when Dream Lover came out. I'm actually looking right now. Let's see, on my birthday, the week of my birthday, the number one song.
I'm so dead.
Oh, interesting. So this is so interesting. I was born in 77. And wow, this is interesting. So leading up to my birthday, it was "Best of My Love" by The Emotions, which is a great song.
Oh,
and still a famous song. I love that song. And then Andy Gibb, who was part of the Bee Gees, he was on the chart for 1 week with "I Just Want to Be Your Everything." "Best of My Love" came back. And then before my birthday was the Star Wars theme, because Star Wars came out, and because my mom and dad saw
77.
Yeah, 77.
Yeah.
It came out in the fall of 77. But the song that charted for my birthday, which charted for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looks like about 9 weeks, was "You Light Up My Life" by Debbie Boone, which is a song I do not like at all.
I mean, it's so classic though.
it's classic. It's just It's like so slow. I don't like slow, depressing.
It is.
And it's not depressing.
Let's just say "Best of My Love" by the Emotions is your song. So
that's I mean, I will also own Star Wars as my theme song. I love Star Wars. So there you go. All right, that's cool. Right. All right. So for all those listening, if you want to write into us after the episode and ask what your song was, Kevin and I will get back to you on song facts. No,
we will. But, we'll let you know if we love it or not.
Exactly. All right. Maybe we can do a podcast on music, but here we go. Okay. I'm going to move on because we'll talk about this the whole time.
Yeah.
I will talk about this the whole time. So Kevin.
I mean, I will too. Yes.
You will too. Speaking of that, let's get into your comfort zone. So what's something that's inside of your comfort zone, Kevin, that might be outside of somebody else's besides going deep down the rabbit hole of Wikipedia?
Oh man, that is a good question. You know, it's something that I've realized that I'm much more keen on doing that others don't. I love taking public transit in unknown and foreign places. And going back to how much I travel, I distinctly remember I went to Budapest for the first time in 2016. I was there by myself, didn't know a single soul. And I took the train from the airport to my Airbnb. And I think any other person probably would have called a taxi, called an Uber, like would have found like the quickest way of actually getting to where they were trying to go, just knowing that, number one, you don't know the language, you don't know anybody there. It's all a foreign place. And there was so much excitement in learning something about the city that's so intimate and so nuanced. And I was very blessed by the fact that a lot of Hungarians do speak really good English. It was pretty easy to have a conversation with them and trying to show them my phone, show them maps. But I mean, I take that philosophy anywhere I go. Like I've been all over Southeast Asia. I've been China, Japan. I've been to most of Europe. I've been South America and most of the US. And public transit is the one thing that I find myself wanting to do as soon as I get there, because it helps me understand what a city really values and prioritizes.
That's such a cool answer. I've never thought about that. That's such a cool answer. I've never. What's your favorite public transportation system you've ever been on?
Oh, I mean, Kyoto's, or really Japan's. I mean,
I've heard
for many reasons, but Japan has the cleanest, the most efficient, and I'm type A, so the efficiency and the organization is mind blowing. But it's so clean, and it. For a lot of people that live in Japan, the train is where you find your peace. People don't talk on the trains. People are much more respectful. Yeah, right. And I live in New York, so like it's exactly opposite. But people are so respectful of other people's spaces and boundaries, and I cannot say more about that train system or that public train system. So
I've seen I've seen the videos. I've seen the videos of it, like the crush of people that just go. But it's like a crush that's just so it's so orderly.
Yes.
So
it's like organized chaos.
So I want to ask you a second follow-up question to this, then I want to share a quick public transportation story with you that I think you'll find interesting. What's your least favorite public transportation system you've ever been on?
Oh, my least favorite? Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so many. My least favorite.
You're like, have you ever heard of the MTA?
you know what's crazy?
New York subway's great. I like the subway.
I actually don't hate MTA though. I really don't. No. And I'll explain why a little bit, but I think my least favorite that I can recall, man, that is such a good question. I'll say LA or San Francisco. Does LA even have one?
Terrible. Oh, the BART? Are you talking about BART? Or are you talking about the actual?
Yes, BART in Muni.
So bad.
I spent 3 months out there when I was a senior in college, so I got a chance to really know SF as a city, and frankly, to SF's credit, it's not really a city where people are spending time on the trains anyway. Hence, why the city hasn't prioritized it from an appropriations perspective. But it's just poor. I mean, it's slow. It doesn't really go anywhere. Atlanta too. Atlanta is a city that's built around the suburbs, so the transit itself is really just like 2 lines. I used to go out to San Francisco for work all the time, and I'd take the BART from SFO into down by like the Embarcadero, and it wasn't terrible, but it was just it was just dirty. I don't know. It's just you're right. They don't put a lot of funding into it, but all right. Exactly. I'm going to tell you this quick public transportation story. I think you'll appreciate this. Oh, I love it.
Well, have you ever been to Cinque Terre in Italy? You know where that is?
No. So is that Cinque Terre? Is that wait? That's near Amalfi Coast, right?
Yeah, right. So it's these 3 coastal towns near the Amalfi Coast.
Okay, haven't been there, but I've been close to it. Go ahead.
My wife and I were in Italy, and it was like fall of 2015, and we were staying in Florence at the time, and it's a tourist trip, right? So like what you do is you take a bus from Florence, you head out to Cinque Terre, and we went there, and it's these 3 towns, and they have a train that runs between them, and it's kind of an older, it's like a subway car, but it's a little bit older. What they didn't tell us until we got there was that the week before there'd been a transit strike.
Oh no.
Because I don't know I didn't know about this, but I guess in Europe, transit strikes happen all the time. Like in France, it's like a thing where they just go on strike. So. Yeah, they just go on strike, and then like the subway, it would be like the MTA going on strike, which I believe is illegal. I don't think the MTA can go on strike. Like I think it's actually illegal. I think it's kind of like the air traffic controllers can't actually go on strike.
Right, sort of right. That makes sense. Yeah.
So anyway, we get there, and we got there early in the morning. I'm like, oh, this isn't too bad. When I tell you 2 hours later, I've never been on a train like this. It was, I don't get scared easily. It was scary. And there was a lot of elderly people on this trip. It was frightening, man. I mean, you could not have fit one more person in that car, because what happened is the only way to really get back and forth between these towns in any efficient fashion is through public transportation. And the towns were shut down the weekend before. So all these tourists were there, and I was scared. Like I saw like some older people. I'm like, if this person falls, they're going to get trampled to death. It was frightening.
Yep. And that's scary.
It was really scary. And the thing is, like, it's rickety. It's not great. It was really hot because it's a beach. It's a beach area. I mean, it's a stunning place, but it was not a good experience. So that would definitely be my answer to my own question. That's the worst public transportation experience I've ever had.
I mean, I've been quite scared many a times, but I'll be honest, MTA I find to be a little safer than some others, and find to be much more efficient than others. So it's not perfect by any means, but if I can leave this audience with anything, it's that the MTA is not the worst thing on the planet. Please believe me. And I'm someone that takes it every day. So
yeah. Very cool. All right. So opposite. What's opposite of this for you, Kevin? So what is outside of your comfort zone that might be inside of somebody else's?
Oh man. Okay. This is the one question that I could not think of an answer to. So I didn't have time to really think about it. Man. Okay. So here's the thing. Oh gosh. What would I say? I'm not someone that
I've got something for you.
Okay, get since you know me, go ahead.
Confrontation or not having people like you.
Okay. Yeah. You got me. Okay, that's good. Yeah. No, that is definitely something. I was thinking of something like, I don't like to spit on the side of the sidewalk, but we can go right there, Jason. We can go right there.
I don't want to spit on the side of the sidewalk.
Sure, both things are true, right? But no, you're right. We've had plenty of conversations about how many times I get in my own head, and I think I'm sometimes selfless, and that is to my detriment. But it's really because I want to be, and that's rooted in a lot of other things that we talked about through our sessions. But yeah, no, that's a good one. I'm not really sure how much time we have to go into that, but we can talk about that.
Oh, well, let's move that to another section, because I think that'll be part of your journey, because I know that's something that you we can talk about there.
Yeah.
Let's move on to something that I do know is inside your comfort zone, based on, the kind of work you do, which we're actually going to get into it a little bit later as well. Give you 5 minutes. You get to deliver a speech to the entire world. What would you give your speech on? And I'm actually going to change up the end of this. This is the first time I've ever done this on this podcast. What would you give your speech on? And what would your call to action be for the audience? What would you want them to do after listening to your speech?
Man, that is such a good question. So I'm probably going to this is going to be really polarizing, but I think I would make my speech on why Beyonce's Lemonade deserved Album of the Year over Adele's 25 in 2016 at the Grammys. And
so let me get this straight.
Go ahead.
You have a platform to change the world. and you're going to argue about an album from 5 years ago.
Well, so
I like it.
Here's the thing. I'm going to argue about an album from 5 years ago, but it's because I know the kind of the vast implications of what that album meant to a lot of Black women. And,
Okay.
you know, if you ever listen to the album, you know, I think on the surface, and this, I don't know this because I listened to Dissect, that podcast, and they really dissected the whole album from start to finish. But that album was not only just about the kind of supposed infidelity between her and Jay-Z, but it was really a love letter to Black women and the intergenerational struggles that they have gone through, like from slavery, and how a lot of the trauma from that period has carried over into their relationship with the state, the government, the US government, with their fathers, with their husbands, with their sons. And I just think it is such a beautiful, well-crafted, well-explained piece of literature. And I think it is owed the world. I love Adele's 25. I love Adele. But when I think about the albums that really change the conversation on many topics, that album for me was really a turning point. So that's why. Yeah.
Kevin, I don't think I've ever had a guest who won't redeem themselves in the space of like 10 seconds from arguing about an album to like, oh, wait, that's some really important shit you just said.
Look, Jason, if you know me, I'm always going to back my shit up with some facts.
I know you are. I know you are.
You know?
I know you are. I want to personally apologize for jumping to conclusions that I'm like,
It's okay.
I will tell you what I was picturing in my head. I was picturing Kanye with Beyonce versus Taylor Swift. And I'm like, and you're like, hold on a minute. And then you like went from like, true. Yes, but it's really about the plight of the black women in America and the implications it still has on us today. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna sit over here and just acknowledge Kevin for that amazing thing. Yeah.
I'm gonna make my speech about that. And the call to action to answer your second question is going to have everyone listen to the album, watch the film, and do some research about what different elements, whether they be visual or in word, she used to build that album. It's so funny you say that you're interested in how artists find inspiration from other artists. If you look at each song on that album, she pulled elements from reggae, from rock to gospel to pop to ballads, like from other artists that like you wouldn't even think she listened to. And it was one of those albums that I think is such a culmination of different sounds and different cultures and histories, and it was just pulled together so beautifully. So that's why I can't say enough about it. Yeah.
Well, my only way to redeem myself, and I have very little power to redeem myself at this point, other than maybe to turn over the microphone to you, and you can just quiz me on a bunch of stuff the rest of the episode. But I will in the show notes, I'm specifically going to put a link to these. And specifically say, Kevin says you must listen to these through this lens.
Please.
That'll be, I do it. I will put that in the show notes without a doubt.
I love you for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Kevin. We're going to take a really brief commercial break and we'll be right back.
The Talking to Cool People podcast is brought to you by Jason Frizzell Coaching. Jason works with amazing people who are looking to find and develop their passion and purpose and create their journey to wherever it is they want to go. Check us out at jasonfrizzell.com, Facebook, or on Instagram. Jason loves hearing from anyone who thinks it would be cool to connect, to be coached, or to be a guest on our show. Email him at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com or DM him on Facebook and Instagram. And now, back to some more amazing conversation on Talking to Cool People.
All right, Kevin. So up next, this is the part of the show where you get the opportunity to give us a little more background on you, what you're up to, what you've been up to, what you're up to in the world today. Yeah, just, this is your time to shine, my friend. So what would you like the audience to know about you and your journey?
Yeah. So among the many random facts and things that I nerd out about, there's been one thing in particular that has really taken up a lot of my personal space and professional space, frankly. And Jason knows this very well, but I am actually in pre-production for my first documentary film that I'm producing. Back in May 2020, I decided to put more of my personal and professional energy into documentary film. So I started by really watching a lot of different films, getting different tastes for different styles, and different formats and different topics. And then I started thinking about the topics that I find important and things that resonate with me. and did a lot of research on topics. And I finally nestled on one. And so I'm currently in pre-production for a film that's about the history and the importance of the nightlife economy as it relates to a social infrastructure for Black and brown queer people. So that's a fancy way of saying how do different parties, clubs, bars in New York City all create a safe space for Black and brown queer people, whether they be queer or non-binary or trans, and how have those organizations and those people and groups changed their role in the face of Black Lives Matter and COVID, because those two things have drastically changed the way in which we interact with each other. Some ways we can't even at all, right? So in some ways it's digital. So I'm doing a film that charts the history, but also talks about those handful of organizations that are doing really good work. And we start production in March, April, and hopefully we'll wrap by June, July. And the goal is that we're spending the rest of the year, so fall, winter, doing screenings in the city and premiering at festivals. So I'm very excited about that.
Very exciting. The first one thing I like to do in this section is I just like to literally ask curiosity questions that pop up for me. Have you thought about putting a song from Lemonade in the film?
So a song from Lemonade probably won't fit.
Probably not.
But it probably not. But there might be a song. I'll consider it. The good thing about this film is that I'm actually working with a group of people, really talented people, that have technical skills that I don't. So I don't have a film background. I don't have the technical skills to put together a film from all angles. And so I'm really leaning on people to be a director. I'm leaning on someone to be my cinematographer, leaning on someone to do lighting and audio. And that's allowed me to really take in and be open to feedback from many different perspectives that I otherwise wouldn't have thought about. So it's a really good process of checking your own privilege in some cases and checking your own biases, so that you're really building a product that is inclusive of the community you're trying to illustrate. Yeah.
I want to ask you a couple questions about filmmaking specifically, because I'm also a big film person, but I'm not a filmmaker by any stretch of the imagination. I think in another life I would have loved to be in I think in another life, or maybe even this life, I'd love to do more around film, because I love podcasting and I love doing those sort of things, but I think doing film is cool. I want to ask you, first of all, what's been your biggest takeaway or biggest learning since you've been on this journey of kind of getting into this work and doing it? What's been most surprising for you, or what's been the biggest takeaway for you so far?
I mean, that's a great question. I think on the surface, what I've actually been really surprised by, or really affirmed by, is that there are so many people that I've met along the way that have been so open just to talking with me and supporting me, that have no real reason to. I mean, they don't know me. I maybe met them a month ago, but have been willing to, review my scripts and provide feedback on my proposals. So I've been and we talk so much about how this industry, and we talk so much about how this craft is, it's intense, right? It's cutthroat. Like, sometimes only the best of the best of the best survive. But I've been so affirmed by how supportive everyone is on the ground. And that has only kind of given me more fuel to keep pushing when I don't feel that innately or that intrinsically. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing that I'll say is that it really does pay in dividends to enlist people on this journey, so long as they also believe in seeing the project come to fruition. And I'll give you an example, right? So back in June, July, I realized, all right, I have my proposal, I have my theme. And I was, in the process of trying to find a director, trying to find someone who could actually be the person behind the camera. And I talked to a couple people. It was a really strange scenario where, I'd have conversations and then, they would never follow up, or they would never actually show interest after the fact. And I got so frustrated, and I was like, why is it that no one is understanding how important this topic is? It's like, I'm putting all the statistics in front of you. And it was almost like it was falling on deaf ears. And it wasn't until I really switched my mode of thinking to really find people that also come from the same community. So as opposed to just trying to find anyone to direct the film, I should be trying to find another Black queer person, right? Because they're going to be just as invested in making sure this project is authentic and is properly illustrating the community that we both care about. And when I flipped that way of thinking, that's when I basically was able to secure not only a director, but someone that could do all forms of it, all forms of the film, but also make sure that they want to see it look good. And I think that was the biggest thing. It's like, I don't want to just make a film because I want to make sure that this film is something that the community is going to look at and think, well, this is an accurate, honest, open description of who we are as people and what we're trying to accomplish. And so it's so funny because we talk so openly about this in tech, but there is not a pipeline problem if you are open to looking where you should be looking. And there are plenty of really talented people that can accomplish the job. You just have to be open to finding them.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. What, my other question was, what advice would you have for other Kevins out there who are, have that? So I think, so I look at you in this part of your life as an artist, right? Like you're an artist, you're a storyteller. This is not a head thing. This is a heart thing. So I think, I mean, you can disagree with me, but for me, I feel like movie making is generally, the people making the films is generally like a passion, heart thing, not a brain thing. Because if it was a brain thing, you probably wouldn't do it because logically it's like, okay, there's a lot of things that we probably wouldn't do. Yeah.
Right.
What advice would you give to all the other Kevins out there who are looking to perhaps make a film, get into, work on films, they want to know more? And I know you've been in this journey. What kind of advice would you give?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the things that grounded me when I was first starting, and I say this to someone that started less than a year ago, but the things that grounded me is that I knew I was comfortable in knowing what I didn't know. And I was comfortable in knowing what I was really good at. And so as opposed to feeling like I had to be a jack of all trades, master of none, I decided to own the lane of being the producer, right? If I have this vision in my head and I know that I can communicate it on paper and communicate it to someone else in an elevator pitch, then own that process of the film and enlist people and enlist stakeholders to do the other parts of the film that that are going to take you longer to do or going to be more challenging for you. And not saying you can never do it, but you only have so much time to do something. And I had promised myself that I would complete this film before the year ended. Now I could have obviously taken many classes to learn editing and cinematography, but that's only going to distract away from what I'm really good at, which is really fundraising and synthesizing and being concise. And so I would say trust in the things that make you you, and don't be afraid if there's something important that you can't do, and know that you can find someone to work alongside you in that process.
Yeah. I want to also offer something up as advice here, not to you, but more so to the audience, from my experiences. And I'd love to hear your perspective on this, but don't be afraid to share what you're up to with everybody who will listen. Because you never know who's going to be that one person who knows that one person who makes all the difference for you. Yep.
I completely agree with that. I would also say, as a side note, I enlisted stakeholders, and when I mean stakeholders, I mean just friends. Like I remember filling in my first 3 friends when I decided, like, I think I'm going to do this thing. I remember telling them, and at that point it was just a thought, right? But having people hold you accountable meant that there were people keeping tabs on me and making sure that I was following up with like the next steps. And not say that they were being like, not that they were like lecturing to me, but I think filling your small circle of close friends in on those small steps and baby steps and small moments of progress, it gives you more fuel when you're lacking it sometimes, because the journey isn't linear. It's a jungle gym. Yeah.
All right, man. Very cool. All right, let's move on to the next part of the show, which you're probably very excited about, because you get to ask me anything. And when I say anything, that is true. You can ask me anything. I can say no to answering it. I haven't done that yet with a guest, but this is the part where you can ask me whatever you like, Kevin. So what would you like to ask me that I can answer for you and for the audience?
Okay. I have so many questions.
And by the way, we don't have to restrict it to one. Some people, they're like, can I ask you more than one? I'm like, what do you think? Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've got some time. If you think it's an interest, if it's something you're curious about, then hopefully the audience is curious. So you can ask me a couple things. So let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So first question, is actually in reference to the first exercise that you and I did back in, I think it's had to be maybe January, February.
Mm-hmm.
But how would you describe your essence?
Well, yes, my essence. So let me set the context of this question for the people listening. So your essence is something that, and it's just a coaching term through the kind of coaching work that I do. When we talk about your essence, what we're talking about is it's the thing that's innate within you, but also how you show up in the world. So for some people, they'll say this is how God created you if you're religious, like if you're spiritual in that way. For some, it's just how you were born. It doesn't really matter, that part of it. It's the thing that's innately powerful about you, and you can't do anything about it, no matter how hard you are on yourself. It's how you show up in the world. And and I'm going to answer the question about mine, but I want to share just a tiny bit more context around this. There's a workshop that we run, and we're actually running this weekend, where we'll do this exercise, and we'll do it with people that don't know you. So what we'll say is like, hey, like, what shows up when Kevin does? What qualities does Kevin bring in the room? And 100% of the time, and we'll do this with 10, 15, 20 people on a Zoom meeting or in a room, 100% of the time, the things that people say about you, it's so what you'll ask is to say, is there anything that you can't own about what other people said about you? It is rare that you get a no to that. It's really, really magical. So I say all that to say, like, your essence is the thing that you bring, whether you want to or not. So my first coach did this with me. It was the very first thing we did together. So mine are passion, energy, drive, connection, and play. Those are my 5 essence words. And when I heard them from my coach, I'm like, yep. Oh, those are the things that I've always known about myself that I've never been able to name. Done. Yeah. Those are me. So Kevin, remind me, I don't have them in front of me. What are yours again? Do you have them in front of you?
I don't have them in front of me, but I think I remember. Humor, authenticity, grace.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man,
I've got them in front of me.
Now, you got them?
Yeah, you want them?
Yeah. What are the other two?
So this is Kevin's essence. Kevin is energy, humor, depth, authenticity, and grace. And I think that is such a good reflection of who you are. And I would be shocked if you ever said, this is what I got, anybody who knows you would be like, yeah, I don't agree with that.
Yeah. I hope so.
Yeah, exactly.
I purposely, it's funny. In that exercise, I purposely asked someone that just met me a day ago and someone that had known me 27 years. And it was really interesting how even with that, such a big gap in that time, the words remain true. So
yeah, very cool. Thanks for the question. I love that.
Yeah.
So those
now
are
my other one.
Those are message words.
Damn it. My other one. What would you say to 18-year-old Jason?
Oh man, I love this. I would say so many things.
Yeah. And you only have a minute. You only have a minute to talk to that other person.
Okay, great. All right. So what I would say to 18-year-old Jason is slow down. It's not that big a deal. Have more fun. Find out what makes you happy. Enjoy the ride. And it's not just about the result.
Love that.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
And that's less than a minute. Look at that.
That is. You're right. You're right.
Yeah. It was funny because the first thing that came up for me when you asked that was like 18-year-old. I'm like, I would probably say that to 35-year-old Jason too. I would probably in some ways say those same things to Jason from yesterday.
Right. Exactly. It's so relevant, but I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's so relevant. Yeah, man. I look back at, I just want to spend a minute on this. I think this is such a cool topic. It's kind of like parenting. It's like, how many human beings have been in the history of the world been born? I'm sure the number's out there. It's, there's 7 billion humans on the planet now, which never
living,
living right now, which means what has been like maybe 12, 13, 14 billion, 15 billion people, maybe. I have no idea. I'm not a math person. But nobody can tell you how to parent.
Right.
You can read books about it. You can learn techniques, but every parent that you talk to will be like, oh, I'm figuring out as I go along. Like you can't just read a book and be a parent.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing with being a human. If it was as easy as what would you tell your 18-year-old self, we would all just go and read the book by Jason and Kevin that's about read the manual. Like, hey, when you're 18 years old, go and read this book. It's going to tell you how you can be your best self when you're 40 or 45 or 50 or 80 or 90. But it's like, it's one of the greatest things about life, in my opinion, is like, you just have to learn for yourself. Like there's nobody can tell you how. Nobody, no coach, therapist, consultant, no system. Like, yeah, like all those things are great support structures that I think are additive to that. But at the end of the day, it has to come from within. And that's actually in coaching, that's the thing you really try to focus on is like, well, what do you think? Like what's your truth? Not what does the system say you should do, or what is the, what's the thing? Like what's true to you inherently in your heart and in your soul. And it's such a great question. Cause like if you're 18 and you wanted to, you could go to like 100 people that are in their 40s and 50s and 60s, say, hey, what would you tell yourself they're 18? And those people would probably tell you kind of similar stuff to me. And then you go do whatever you want anyway.
Exactly. Right. Because you're living in that moment. You're not living as a 40-year-old person. You don't have the context. So,
And someday when, when we're old and gray back on a podcast again, be like, man, what would you tell yourself when you're 43 and 29? You'd be like, oh my God, so many things.
Right. But
which also makes it really fun. I love that question.
I love the motto of just enjoying the ride. Like it's not always about the result. I love that because the process, I think, is what grounds me.
Yeah. I love that, Kevin. Yeah. You know what? We got time for one more. If you got one more for me, or if not, we can move on. You tell me.
I think I'm gonna stop there. That was a good last question. I'm gonna stop there.
It was. You kind of that's kind of the the grand finale for the Ask Jason Anything section. All right, so we're gonna get back into some more questions for you, Kev. So what are you passionate about?
Oh man.
Just like one, you're not a very passionate person, so I know this is a challenge for you. You don't have any interest or passion. So
well, here's what I'll say. I'm really passionate about channeling all the ways I speak from a place of privilege in service of those who aren't. And I think about film as a way of doing that. All the films that I want to make, all the ideas that I have, they're really about creating a platform for those that come from vulnerable communities, groups of people that are sometimes misunderstood. But I ultimately believe that everyone is owed that humanity. And in my example, film is a way of illustrating that. So that's really about me taking my own either financial capital or human capital and really investing my energy in something that I care about. So, but it's always about identifying where are the ways I come from privilege and how can I help those that have been either institutionally or systemically marginalized or oppressed. Yeah, I love doing work like that.
Yeah. What is it you love about it?
I think it gives me perspective. It always grounds me. It fuels me, and it reminds me that I'm never alone. And there's always someone that understands you, even if you can't always see them, or even if they're not always top of mind for you. So I think I just like how it reminds me of my own humanity when I do those things. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. What is the thing that you are most proud of, Kevin?
Oh man. The first one that came to mind was 2 years ago, almost to the day, I decided to make a commitment to myself to prioritize my mental health. And that was really centered around working with a licensed therapist. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I'll say before I jump in here is that I think, and this is the case with many communities, but the Black community has a really strange relationship with mental wellness and how we think about our own mental health. And for a lot of people, they don't feel comfortable going to see a therapist because of how that is stigmatized in the community. Mm-hmm. And that was a really big decision on my part to reclaim my own wellness in many respects and to work with a therapist. And what I will say is that has obviously not been an easy process because you are trusting a stranger with really vulnerable, really scary, sometimes traumatic information. And that is never a comfortable process, but it is always worth it, in my opinion, to do the work. Yeah. And it's been 2 years ago to the day where I've been going every 2 weeks to see my therapist. So yeah, she's been incredible. I can't say enough. And I'm just so excited to continue growing with her. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big fan of therapy. I have a therapist as well. She was actually a guest on my show last year, Dr. Kristen Davin. So Dr. D, okay. I think it was like episode 8 or 9. She's delightful. And I had never seen anybody before. And I realized that I didn't have a stigma about it, but I was like, oh, I don't need it. And through working with a coach first, actually, and then going through a really extensive training program, I was like, I got some stuff to work through from my past. Like, oh yeah, there's some stuff there, like family of origin stuff and things that I mean about me, and just just like I love it.
I mean, Jason, go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Kevin.
I was gonna say, I think it is, talk about things I nerd out about. It is absolutely fascinating to me how you can take somewhat traumatic memories and moments in your childhood and suppress them so deep into your adulthood that you almost forget that they happened, and you forget that you are pained because of it. And one of the more beautiful but also scary things about seeing a therapist is that you are actively digging up those things so that you can actually process them properly, as opposed to letting them almost like be the puppet master in your life for things to come. And I got to a point when I was around 26, 25, where I could see there was a pattern, and I could see that I was always going to struggle with a lot of things, whether it be familial things, or dating, unless I actually confronted those things that were really haunting me. So I love that. I think you're so right.
Yeah. Awesome, man. What's something that you're afraid might actually be true about you, Kevin?
Oh, well, my boyfriend is going to love that I said this, but I actually think that I could live in Manhattan, as crazy as that sounds. I think I could live there. And I say that because I think I've built a brand around being someone that loves Brooklyn, loves the neighborhoods. I could spend more time in Brooklyn than anywhere else in the world. But in spending obviously more time with him, he lives in Manhattan. I think I could actually do it. And that makes me sad, because I think it pains me to say that I could leave Brooklyn and be happy about it. So
it pains you. It's a soul crushing.
It pains me. It literally soul crushes me, but it pains me to say that because I do love Brooklyn so much. I think I would consider myself to be open as it relates to food. I've had this most wild things in the world. I've had guinea pig, I've had scorpion, I've had a lot of things in my travels, but I think I'm probably a picky eater. And I hate to say that, but I probably am a picky eater too. I don't like some things that other people love. Like I can't stand olives. I just got into avocados. What else?
Dude, I don't like avocados either. I like guacamole.
It's a texture for me, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I like guacamole. I love guacamole because of the spices and like the lime juice, but I don't like plain avocado. And people are like, oh, I got to have avocado on my sandwich or my salad. I'm like, no, it's not good. It doesn't taste like anything. It's not good. It's gross.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not an avocado fan either. There you go.
Yes. And the last thing I'll say is that I think I've always been, again, to my essence, I think I've always been an extroverted person, more or less. Like I get energy from those around me, and it excites me to be in social spaces. But if there's anything that I've learned about myself in the past year, it's that I also have a lot of introverted tendencies, and I tend to lean into those things more often than not. And it might be because of COVID and just how I've spent more time with myself. But I think I'm a balance of the two versus being a whole extrovert, which is fine. But yeah.
I'm glad you brought this up. I'm laughing because my friend and future guest, Molly Grisham, she's amazing. You got to listen to her episode. She's She's a former like college soccer coach, female soccer coach, and now she does like leadership and performance consulting and works a lot with like sports teams, like high school and college teams. She's great. I'm interviewing her soon. She does Myers-Briggs work, and I just took an assessment with her, and I'm actually going to get some coaching on her around it in the next couple of weeks. And it's like the official Myers-Briggs assessment where it breaks down the number where you land, not only in the like, are you an E, are you an I, but actually like your number. This will probably not surprise you. My extroversion, I am all the way to the left. I'm I'm 100% extrovert, which is true. And so I actually I did a podcast interview yesterday, and we were some of Myers-Briggs came up, and we were talking about this and like what his style was and what my style was. And he asked me, like, well, how are you doing with COVID? And I'm like, it's a good question. It's actually not that bad for me. Would I like to go out and hang out with you and have a drink at the bar? I would love to do that. That's my ideal. But my profession, I spend all day like looking at people and talking to people. I'm actually not really struggling that much. Like, I would love to see more people in person, but I have a lot of structures in that. And then the last thing, because you brought up Myers-Briggs and extroversion, I just have to brag for a minute, because I retook this and I've actually shifted a little bit. I used to be an ESFJ, and now I'm a little bit an ENFJ.
That's me. I'm EN. Yeah.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, I looked this up last night because this is how I go. I looked this up, and if I'm not mistaken, do you want to hear some of the names of the people that had this style? And it's also as men, Kevin.
So excited.
As men, it's very it's not common. It's only 2% of all males are an EN, because what I was reading about is it's a combination of the intuition, like the N part is is not that common with men, because we're also J's, which is not a common combination. Like, we like to plan, we're organized, but we also lean more into our intuition, which is not a common thing. And for you, I want to say this, one of the things they call out is a lot of like actors and directors and artists that are men are in. So you're in the right place. So I'm going to give you a list of some of the people, and maybe I'm just going to pull it up. I think you're going to be very, very happy with this. Yeah. Famous ENFJs. Let's see. All right. Morgan Freeman.
I mean,
former President Barack Obama.
I mean,
yeah, right. Exactly.
Like I'm speechless.
Right. I know. Nelson Mandela.
Okay. You can stop there. Yeah.
Well, I've got one more for you that I think you're going to enjoy. Dr. Martin Luther King.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Now you can really stop. That's my frat brother. That is truly.
Oh, you're in the same. Yeah.
Same fraternity, right?
Yeah. Let me give you a few of the actors and actresses. Jennifer Lawrence, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, Morgan Freeman, Reese Witherspoon, Ben Affleck, Emma Stone, Matthew McConaughey, Sean Connery, Kristen Wiig, and then I think you're going to like this one, Oprah Winfrey.
Okay, so I have my boyfriend loves Oprah Winfrey. Love. Yeah. I love her too. But like, she's cool. He loves her though. So I actually think Nelson Mandela and MLK are like the two that really gave me goosebumps. Oprah's great, but
totally. Well, President Barack Obama's not terrible either.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because this feels like we're reading zodiac signs, but
it does.
These people could have complete zodiac signs than I. That is so funny. Okay, wow.
Well, I want to give you a couple more. And again, like, this is just a list. Who knows if this is actually true? But ENFJ musicians: Bono, Freddie Mercury. I love Queen, so I was very happy to hear that.
Oh, Queen, yes.
That totally makes sense, because at least his stage presence, he was so extroverted, but so into like the intuition part of it. KRS-One, and then finally athletes. A couple good athletes on here: Michael Jordan, Peyton Manning, Cristiano Ronaldo, John Wooden, the basketball coach, Pete Sampras. So I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great list.
Oh, I got one more for you, and then I'm going to stop because people are getting bored. Maya Angelou.
Oh, love.
Yeah, there you go.
Love.
Yeah, so we're a small 2%. 2% of all men are ENFJs. Yeah.
Small but mighty. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome, man. And I'm sure most of the audience is not listening because they're like, okay, how long is this going to go on for? But I did it anyway.
I'm sorry, team. Sorry, audience. I'm sorry.
It's our show. We're good. So,
Yeah.
Kevin, I want to start to wrap up today. And I want to just spend a couple minutes or even maybe just a minute on how you see the world. So this is my philosophy question. So you wake up in the morning. It's a good morning. What's your view of the world? How do you see the world? What's your philosophy on life?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my philosophy is to lead with empathy always. And I say that because I have been blessed to see a lot of things, experience a lot of things, to be in a lot of spaces, both foreign to me and, similar and comfortable. And I always take away, I always leave having a deeper understanding of what it means to be in someone else's shoes. And I think that's fueled, my desire to go into film. It's fueled my desire to nestle in this borough that I call Brooklyn and to be a true resident where I have my local deli person and my local dry cleaner, but I always want to lead with empathy. And I'll stop there.
Very nice. Very nice. That's awesome. How can the audience connect with you and find you?
Well, so Jason already said my Instagram, and I'll make a plug for that because that's probably where I spend most of my time. Not really spend most of my time, but that's where I think I will likely provide the most updates about the films that I'm making and the work that I'm doing. So my Instagram is a great place. I also in the process of creating a website, so I will provide a link to the website just so you get a deeper understanding of how to get in contact with me and how to read up on the projects that I'm talking about or that I'm working on. And let's see, anything else. I mean, LinkedIn it's fine, but it's just kind of there. So we'll leave the website and Instagram the two that are the most dynamic, but are really I think if you want to get a look of authentic Kev, those are the two. We'll leave it there.
I would say that that's very accurate. And also, sometimes I see your Instagrams and I'm like, do you have a professional photographer following you around and doing these shoots? I'm like, how is this possible?
Well, so I did take a couple of professionally photographed photos. That feels redundant. For my birthday last year, I decided to treat myself to a photo shoot. And so there are a couple of photos that are by actual New York-based photographers, but in most cases, no, it's just my iPhone or it's someone else's iPhone. So I hate to burst someone's bubble, but yeah.
Well, whatever. I'm just jealous of your stuff. Okay. Last thing, Kevin. Last thing for us. Love if you would leave us with some Kevin Satterfield trademarked, copyrighted, whatever that thing is. Words of wisdom. What would you like the audience to know? And let's say it's got to fit on an Instagram post and it's got to be on the graphic of the Instagram post when it's not a picture of you. It's got to be what would you like to leave us with today?
So I was thinking of something that could fit on the Post-it note. So I'm actually going to take this from a friend. She has a tattoo, and on the tattoo, it's the words "be still." And I love that tattoo. I love that phrase because I think it is in the moments when we are the most still and the most with our own thoughts, we have the most clarity. And there are a lot of things about 2020 that we could probably dwell on and think we could probably think about as scary and sad. But I'm also very grateful for the fact that I had the chance, and I'm, there's privilege in this, but I had the chance to go back to Charlotte, where my parents live, spend 3 months, and really be by my lonesome. I wasn't distracted by the city. I wasn't distracted by friends. I wasn't distracted by a lot of things that I think occupy my time now. And that 3-month period between March to May really gave me a lot of clarity about what I want to spend my personal time and what I wanted to spend, like, my energy doing. And I frankly don't think, had that opportunity not come along, I would have been on this journey talking to you about this thing today, because I probably wouldn't have identified, like, what is that passion project that's fueling me out of work, or what's that thing that's keeping me up at night, or what's that thing that I'm excited to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm just excited and really happy that I gave my chance to be still so I can get to this point.
Yeah. Beautiful, Kevin. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I want to make an offer to you right here on live for us, and then recorded for everybody else. I would love to have you back on later this year to talk about your experience of creating this film, and then also sharing where we can see it, all that. I would love to have you back on to talk about the result of all this we're talking about, because you're going into pre-production now. And so I would love your commitment to get back on my show later this year, and we'll talk more about this and see you on the other side of the process.
Yes, I will give you that. I love that. And I think it's true. Like, this is a journey. I'm literally in the nascent stages of this journey. So I welcome that. Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely.
Well, I do just want to say it here live. I want to make sure when you have an agent and a PR agent and a manager that I can somehow get through your red tape to actually make this offer to them. I could see, like, 6 months from now, you'll be like, go talk to my press agent and see, like,
no,
probably not.
No.
It's probably a no.
No. No, can I say one more thing though? So
you can, of course.
I mean, I hope that is never me. Please slap me if that is ever what you hear me say out loud, please. But I say that because I truly don't know where I would be if I didn't have an army of people by my side, like, helping me. Yeah. And I really mean that. My therapist, I mean, down to my nutritionist, right?
Yeah.
Like, the things I eat. And this is also obviously inclusive of my family, my parents, my boyfriend, Trey, and my friends. But without that army, I'm truly nothing. And when we celebrate this film in fall, it'll be a group celebration. It'll be a chance for us to all celebrate this thing that we helped create. And sure, I'll take ownership. That's my job, but I owe it to my community and my village. Absolutely. So,
yeah, thanks, man. I feel the same way about all the things I'm up to and all the support. And thank you for your support and everything. And it's been awesome being on the journey with you. I can't wait to see where you go. And I want to thank you for the time today. Stay warm, my friend.
Yes.
As another Brooklyn person, keep it real.
One Brooklynite to another Brooklynite. Keep it real.
Yeah. And we'll see you back here. We'll see you back here on the show in a few months when you've got some more to share about us.
Yes, let's do it.
Share about all you're up to, Kevin. Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers, Jason.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with Jason Frizzell. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook and give us a shout out, or take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. If something from today's episode piqued your interest and you'd like to connect, email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners because you're cool people too.